Welcome to the deep dive.
Allowed to be here.
Today, we're zeroing in on one specific document, Executive Order 14149.
Signed early in President Trump's second term.
Exactly. And the idea here is to give you a really focused look at it. We've got the official text, some background context from places like Wikipedia and Wikisource, plus initial news reports from NPR, CNN, The Post.
The usual reliable sources.
Right. And our mission really is just to understand its core ideas, where it came from, and how people reacted right off the bat.
Sounds good. Let's dig in. By the end, you should have a pretty solid grasp of what's in the order and the immediate buzz around it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. EO 14149, the official title is Restoring Freedom of Speech and Ending Federal Censorship.
It didn't just appear out of thin air.
No, definitely not.
Our sources point to January 20th, 2025 as the signing date, day one of the second Trump presidency.
And interestingly, it wasn't alone. Wikipedia mentions it was one of, 26 executive orders signed that same day. 26, yeah. So that tells you something, right? It was part of a much bigger initial push.
Absolutely. It situates it within a broader agenda being set right at the start. And we also have the Federal Register details the official publication.
Ah, right. The official record.
Yeah. So signed on the 20th, but published January 28th, 2025. Document number 2025-01902, volume 90, page 8 of 243 for anyone wanting the precise reference.
Good detail. Now, the background here is, critical. There was that Supreme Court ruling back in June 2024.
Murphy v. Missouri.
That's the one.
Yeah.
NPR and others reported on it. The court essentially said the government could talk to social media companies about content moderation.
Specifically about removing misinformation.
Right. So you have this ruling allowing government communication, and then maybe 7 months later, bam, this executive order lands.
And the order itself jumps right into that context. Section 1, the purpose section.
Yeah.
It kicks on by stating the First Amendment guarantees free speech, without government interference. Basic principle.
But then it makes a claim.
A strong claim. It argues that over the last 4 years, so the preceding administration, those rights were trampled upon. That's the word they use.
Trampled.
Oh.
Okay. And how does it say that happened?
It claims the previous administration pressured social media platforms to censor speech.
Ah,
Huh.
okay. And it mentions specific labels used for that speech.
Yes. Misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. It argues this pressure was applied under the guise of fighting those things.
I see. And you mentioned those terms. Misinformation is just false. Disinformation is intentionally false. And malinformation is maybe true, but used harmfully.
That's the general understanding, yes. And the order, or at least the White House summary we saw, uses phrases like substantial coercive pressure.
So the language is quite pointed.
Very. And the order's bottom line in this section is that this kind of government censorship is, and I quote, intolerable in a free society.
Intolerable. Okay. That sets a clear tone.
Absolutely. It frames the entire justification for the order.
So given that purpose, what does it actually aim to do? That brings us to Section 2, the policy section.
Right. The core policy goals. First, secure the right for Americans to engage in constitutionally protected speech. Seems straightforward.
Okay. And second?
Prevent federal officials, officers, employees, agents from doing anything or helping others do anything that unconstitutionally limits free speech.
Got it. So a direct prohibition on federal personnel.
Exactly. And crucially, it adds that no taxpayer money should be spent on activities that violate this policy.
No public funds for censorship, essentially.
That's the stated goal. And there's one more piece. Identify and correct past government misconduct related to censoring protected speech.
Ah, so looking backwards as well.
It seems so. It wants to address past issues, not just prevent future ones.
Okay, so those are the principles. But how does the order actually try to enforce this? Section 3, mechanism for ending censorship.
Yeah, this is the operational part. The main tool is a direct prohibition. It forbids federal departments, agencies, employees, anyone acting for the government from using resources or taking actions that contradict the policy in Section 2.
So don't do things that unconstitutionally restrict speech.
Pretty much. But it gets more specific. It gives a job to the Attorney General.
Okay, what's the AG supposed to do?
The AG is directed to investigate federal government activities over the previous 4 years.
The same time frame mentioned in the purpose section.
Right. To see if those activities were inconsistent with this order's goals, basically. Looking for instances of what the order calls censorship.
And what comes out of this investigation?
The AG has to write a report for the president, sent via the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy.
And this report includes?
Recommendations for appropriate remedial actions.
Remedial actions. Do the sources say what that might mean?
That's the interesting part. Several sources point out the order is quite vague on that. It doesn't spell out what remedial actions could involve.
So that leaves room for interpretation, potentially.
Or future decisions, yes. It's an open question what those actions might look like or how feasible they'd be. Definitely something to watch.
Okay. Then there's Section 4, General Provisions. This sounds like standard legal stuff.
Mostly, yes. It clarifies the order doesn't override existing legal authorities of agencies or the OMB's role in budgets and legislation. Standard boilerplate, really.
Right, making sure it fits within the existing framework.
Exactly. It also states implementation depends on existing law and, crucially, available funding.
Ah, the practicalities.
And maybe the most important point legally in this section, Section 4C, says the order doesn't create new rights that people can sue the government over.
So you can't just go to court citing this specific order.
Correct. It's framed as an internal policy directive for the executive branch, not a law creating private rights of action.
Okay, that's a key distinction. So
Yeah.
the order is issued. What happens next? People react, I assume.
Oh, definitely. Reactions were swift. Our Wikipedia source gathers some of this initial scrutiny. Disinformation experts, for instance.
Yes.
What did they say?
They expressed concern. The worry was that by pulling back government pressure on platforms, the order could actually help false information spread more easily.
Kind of an unintended consequence.
That's the fear, yes.
Yeah.
That easing up on moderation efforts could open the floodgates to harmful content.
Are there specific examples?
Well, CNN reported on Nina Jankovic.
I remember her name.
Right. She apparently called the order an assault on reality. Pretty strong language.
Wow. Yeah.
And she suggested it could embolden foreign actors and people who profit from spreading disinformation.
So, serious concerns about the real-world impact on the information landscape.
Exactly. But that's not the only perspective, of
Yeah.
course.
No. What else?
USA Today, for example, framed it differently. They reported it as President Trump fulfilling a pledge to his supporters.
So connecting it to campaign promises or supporter expectations.
Right. From that angle, it's seen as a positive step, delivering on a commitment likely related to perceptions of online censorship against certain viewpoints. A win for free speech, in that view.
Presumably.
So-
And the Washington Post saw it as signaling Trump's intent to keep fighting against online content moderation.
So not just a one-off action, but part of an ongoing battle.
That seems to be their interpretation, yeah. A continuation of that push-pull with tech platforms.
And there was another characterization, too. Something about language.
Yes, WBUR's on point. They described it as part of a bigger fight over the power of language.
That's broader than just social media.
It is. It suggests this is about more than just platform policies. It taps into fundamental debates about who controls narratives and defines terms in public life.
Interesting framing. And it helps to remember, as you said earlier, this wasn't the only order signed that day.
Right. We have mentions of others like EO 14147, ending the weaponization of the federal government,
Okay.
and EO 43148, which rescinded some previous orders, and even EO 14168, related to gender ideology.
So seeing 44149 alongside those gives a fuller picture of the administration's initial priorities.
Definitely. It shows a pattern of addressing specific issues right out of the gate, often involving rollbacks or shifts from the previous administration's stance.
And finally, just to loop back, that legal context, Murphy v. Missouri.
Yeah, the Supreme Court case from 2024. We don't need to dive deep into the case itself today, but knowing it's there.
Provides the legal backdrop.
Exactly. It's the recent judicial statement on government communication with platforms, and this executive order is clearly responding to, or at least operating in the context of, that ruling.
It sets up a potential tension, doesn't it, between the court affirming some communication and the executive trying to limit it quite sharply.
That's a very good point. It highlights the ongoing dynamic between the branches of government on these complex free speech and technology issues.
Okay, so let's try to sort of wrap this up, summarizing our deep dive. Executive Order 14149 is, at its heart, an effort to stop what the administration defines as federal censorship, especially online.
And its main tools are prohibiting taxpayer funds for such activities and ordering an investigation into past government actions.
But the reactions show it's not that simple. We heard the concerns from disinformation experts.
Worried about more false information spreading.
Right. And on the other side, supporters viewing it as a necessary step for protecting free speech.
A real split in interpretation and perceived consequences.
Which leads us to the final thought for you, the listener. thinking of all this, the complexity of online speech, the government's role, the First Amendment,
It's a lot to balance.
it really is. So the question becomes, how do we strike that balance? How do we protect freedom of expression while also dealing with the undeniable problems of harmful misinformation online?
What are the most effective approaches? Considering the arguments behind this order and the criticisms of it, what does that balance look like in practice?
Something to mull over, the different views, the potential long-term effects of an order like this. What's the best path forward in this digital age?